Whatever happened to Evan White? The Gold Glove winning first baseman for the Seattle Mariners in the 2020 season, Evan White has not seen much of the field over the past season or so with the Mariners. In fact, he did not play in the major leagues at all in 2022, and he only played in 30 games in 2021. With Ty France over at first base, it seems unlikely that Evan White would ever retake that job from Ty France over there. But can Evan White still make the 2023 Mariners, and what could we expect out of the former first-round pick? In his career, Evan White has played in a total of 84 games. He played in 54 in 2020 and 30 in 2021. In 2020, he hit 176, 252, 346 with a 66 OPS plus, and in 2021, he only hit 144, 202, 237 with a 23 OPS plus. Who could forget Evan White's first home run in Houston, or some of the amazing sparkling plays that he made over at first base? It's no question that Evan White was more than deserving of that Gold Glove at first base, even if it was something of a Mickey Mouse season. But the injury bug is really what has hampered Evan White, and coming back from something like that is going to be pretty tough. In 2021, Evan White underwent season-ending hip surgery, and unfortunately for the Mariners, that was just the beginning of his injury woes. Jerry Dipoto talked about that season-ending hip surgery for Evan White, and he said that if he did undergo that surgery, which of course he did, that he would be prepared for spring training of 2022. Unfortunately for the Mariners, that would not be the case. On March 26, 2022, it was reported that Evan White was going to undergo sports hernia surgery. This, of course, coming off that hip injury, was a big blow for Evan White and the Mariners, as again, he would not be playing at the start of that season. So while a hip surgery cut short his 2021 season, this sports hernia surgery would end up basically destroying his 2022 season. September of 2022, Evan White was placed on the 7-day injured list with hip discomfort. Of course, that surgically repaired hip. It started to act up on him as he was doing his rehabilitation assignment for the Mariners down in Tacoma. As noted here, he had returned to action in early August and was eventually reinstated from the 60-day injured list and optioned to AAA after his 30-day rehab window expired. This hip discomfort, of course, ended his season, and it's easy to think that maybe this hip discomfort, this hip surgery, and this sports hernia surgery, they were all in a way connected. And in 2022, down in Tacoma, Evan White didn't really show up that much. He played in just 28 games and 93 at-bats. He hit 204, 308, 484. He did hit 7 home runs with 16 RBI, but for the Mariners and Evan White, this is a bit more of a conundrum than just a failed prospect or a prospect that hasn't been able to see the field, as the Mariners signed White to a 6-year, $24 million contract extension on November 22nd, 2019. So while you would think that there wouldn't be much of a sunk cost here with Evan White, because basically the Mariners would only be paying in pre-arbitration numbers, that is not the case. Evan White won the Gold Glove in 2020, but in 2021 and in 2022, he didn't really play all that much. He accounted for about $3 million worth of payroll that year. In 2023, however, Evan White is going to get paid $3 million. In 2024, he'll be making $7 million, and in 2025, he'll be making $8 million before some club options kick in, and if those are declined, the Mariners still have him in arbitration for 4 years. Evan White will not be a free agent until 2029. There are some buyouts included. But for the Mariners, we've looked at them a lot trying to get someone to give Ty France a day off at first base, and ultimately, I would think that Evan White could be that guy. He ended the 2022 season on the injured list once again, but as far as I know, he will still be healthy this year in 2023. Of course, yesterday the Mariners did add Colin Moran, although he has not been that great in his major league career, but he could technically give Ty France a day off at first base if need be. He could also be the left-handed complement to Ty France if they needed it, but I don't necessarily know if Colin Moran is the guy you want to use there. According to Corey Brock of The Athletic, he said the sleeper to make the Mariners roster for opening day is Evan White. Brock said the team would like to get some relief for Ty France, who slowed down in the second half. That player could be used as part of a designated hitter platoon of sorts. Could that player be Evan White? If he's healthy and he hits in spring, don't rule it out. But it's safe and fair to say at this point you can't count on that happening. And Brock's right. What can we really expect out of Evan White at this point? And I don't know if we can expect anything. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but I sincerely don't know what we would see from Evan White if and when he comes back. Theoretically, Evan White should be perfectly healthy going into the 2023 season. Hopefully that hip and that hernia surgery are not barking at him anymore, and he has a chance to make this roster and be the person for the Mariners that we need to have Ty France get a day off once in a while. While Evan White hasn't shown a whole lot at the plate in his big league career, he still is a great defensive player. At least we can assume that he didn't lose any of his defense while he was hurt. And if he can get to his minor league numbers, I think we would see a brand new player in Evan White. In 2019, Evan White played in 92 games at AA. He hit 293, 350, 488 with 18 home runs and 55 RBI. In 2018, he hit 300, 371, 453 with 11 home runs and 66 RBI. And just in 4 games in 2021, Evan White hit 333, 385, 833 with 2 home runs and 5 RBI in those 4 games. Overall, Evan White has shown everything he needs to down in the minor leagues, but he still has not been able to hit pitching at the major league level. Of course, with all the injuries going on, it's tough to say whether or not Evan White will ever be able to produce at the major league level. Steamer does have projections for Evan White. They project him to play in 34 games, hitting 214, 278, 396 with a 96 WRC+. Overall in his career, Evan White has accounted for a negative .6 WAR, so you could say that it's not really working out. Evan White has to be the biggest wild card for the Seattle Mariners, but another wild card on their team has to be their pitching, and we took a look at the projections from Steamer on this video on the screen now. Appreciate you guys watching this one, and go Mariners.